Hello, everyone. Welcome to your afternoon delight. It is your Monday afternoon news show, and we have got so many things to discuss. We're going to talk about Thomas Tuchel because the talk is heating up with this man here on the screen, or this man if you're on YouTube, on your right hand side. I'm going to discuss the kind of ex-pros and journalists, and you kind of seeing that talk ramp up just a little bit more and more on social media, more and more around the kind of the general media. It is becoming, the more obvious one. There was a kind of bit of a Graham Potter storm a couple of months ago that we had. This certainly feels like the Thomas Tuchel storm that we're currently going through at the minute. Whether that storm will end or not, who knows? Let's see what happens with it. The Premier League are also set to introduce a salary cap. I want to get everybody's thoughts on that. The positives and the negatives that can be linked with it. We are in for two centre-backs, according to Samuel Luckhurst on Twitter, who's obviously the chief correspondent for the Manchester Evening News, which I don't know how they're going to put that all together in the summer with the amount of people that we're linked with and the positions that we need. I'm interested to get into the technical side of that. Mctominay's picked up a massive injury, according to inside sources. We don't know exactly what it is yet, but apparently that's another kind of long-term thing, so we need to wait for a scan and see what happens. And then yesterday, there was, I'm not going to give him too much airtime, but some idiot at the Burnley game who was one of their fans got arrested for doing, kind of mimicking Munich, doing like a plane thing or something. So he's been arrested, which we'll discuss near the end if we've got a bit of time. Like I said, you don't want to give people like that too much limelight. So, yeah, I'll touch on that near the end if I can. But the main story coming out of today is Thomas Tuchel. So get your thoughts on him. And before I dive into this topic, let me know what manager you would personally go for and what style of play you would like to see at Old Trafford. I was discussing this with the lads yesterday. Make sure you check that show out if you haven't seen it already. Really fascinating. Each lad has like kind of a different angle and a different opinion on it, which what makes fan channels so great. And he was all discussing the different dynamics and what they'd like to see and what kind of, would they go more down the possession based route, or would you stick with this but make sure it's kind of instructed correctly and we've got the right kind of individual personnel. Let me know what you think about the style of play that you want to see, or just another team that you watch at the moment and you admire. Someone like Bayer Leverkusen, for example, under Xavi Alonso, how fluid they are, the rotations, how attacking they are, their individual players that they have, something like that would look amazing. But look, we're going to discuss Tuchel because I saw a clip last night. This is what kind of sparked it because, like I said at the start, there's been a bit of a storm, a bit of a wave at the minute of like Tuchel being pushed right into contention as like the number one contender. And I saw Peter Schmeichel speaking about this on beIN Sports yesterday with Richard Keys and Andy Gray and some other guy, I can't remember who it was. But Eric Schmeichel was stood there saying, we spoke to him before, he's interviewed him many times, he's got the pull, he's got the character, a winner's mentality, and you know exactly where you stand with him. A couple of questions with Tuchel. I do like him, I must admit, first and foremost. I know he clashes with players. I think he's been extremely unlucky to be at two big clubs at the wrong time. So Bayern Munich, for example, everything that's going on at board level at the minute, I don't know if you follow Bayern Munich closely or not, but there is a bit of a shitstorm ongoing with people, coming and leaving. And they're not the usual kind of well-oiled machine that you associate with Bayern Munich, hence why they've just, lost the league this season for the first time in 12 years. When Tuchel came in last season as well, towards the end, they only just won it by basically Borussia Dortmund throwing it in the shit pan. So it's not business as usual at Bayern Munich at the minute. So that has to come into the conversation when we're talking about Tuchel at the minute. The other thing that threw out there was, Bayern Munich kind of pushed back a little bit and said, he has to buy players, he can't develop players and grow them and whatever, And I was like, well, to be fair, did you see the Chelsea team that beat City in the final? That was a good few youngsters in that side and players he develops and players he trusts and brought in. So I don't know. Like I said, there is two sides to it. On another note, I think Andy Gray and Richard Keys, whenever they get an opportunity to talk about United in a dim light, they absolutely take it, don't they? And they almost revel in it. Like they know that from a media standpoint, they're probably sat there thinking, "Oh, we know this is going to get shared everywhere on social media. If we're a little bit bitter about United, it's the most talked about club on the planet. People are going to retweet and share and get annoyed and have an opinion on it and da. So they know what they're doing." I remember the exact same thing with David De Gea when he just left. And he was doing analysis of Onana, and he was in like his third or fourth game, I think it was. And they had like a big screen up and they were saying, Richard. Oh no, it was Richard asking. He was like, Andy, what is a goalkeeper's job? And he was like, to save shots, make sure goals don't go into the back of the net. And he's like, so why have they brought Onana in? And it's like, first and foremost, the guy had played like a handful of games or something. Second of all, the modern way of playing now, look at Alisson, look at Edison, look at David Raya. You know, any keeper has to be really, really good with the feet. That's just the way we're playing at the minute. And that's the main reason why Onana was brought in. Plus, the back of his Champions League campaign, he was amazing. Now, granted, he's not had the best Champions League campaign at United, and he struggled at times and made a couple of mistakes. But the point was, it was a very dinosaur-esque kind of, you know, what's a goalkeeper supposed to do? This, that, you know what I mean? But I'm going off on a tangent anyway. They just like stirring shit when it comes to Manchester United, and it winds me up. And maybe that's them achieving their point by doing that. But I want to get the thoughts of the people currently watching in a minute. Is Tuchel a short-term option? Do you think it's a bit of not a stopgap, but bring him in a couple of years, maybe expect something? Or is he someone maybe do you think you can build with? Will the players respond to him? You know, will they? Do you think they'll clash with him and it'll just be another manager who's thrown out the door within? He'll probably have a first good season, second season syndrome. Or do you think now, because of the Ineos umbrella, he's obviously got much better resources. He's got if Ashworth and Wilcox is already in, but if Ashworth comes in as well, he's got a well-structured board above him. Does that make a huge difference? Of course it is. Of course it does, should I say. But let me know your thoughts. Let's get into the comments. Charlie Malm says, I feel bad for Scotty. They'll most likely use the Euros. He was on the list to be sold to many. This will not happen now, but it depends how long-term it is, to be honest with you. Sam saying Scotland won't make it out of the group anyway. Yeah, spot on. The more news about Tuchel that comes out, the bigger chance is that he has been chosen to be the next manager. Spiritual says, Palace will smash Man U. Palace 5, Man U 0. You know what, usually I would push back on that and argue and say what you want about, but the way we're playing at the minute will not surprise me, genuinely. Look at what Tuchel did at Chelsea. Tuchel's better than Ten Hag. Dan Emerson says, no, stick with Ten Hag, give him the last year of his contract and then decide next summer. Hamid is saying, I'd take Tuchel as long as he gets the new boards to take control of transfers because of his talent ID. Yeah, that's obviously been a huge issue with Eric Ten Hag, and the fact that he was almost given the recruitment options and who he wants to get. And obviously he went with players that he trusted. He went to his platform, but he had a look and he was like, yeah, I know this guy. I've worked with him before. I trusted him. Now, obviously, it doesn't always translate over from the Eredivisie to Premier League, which we've seen, you know, in numerous cases. So, it's the same thing with Amrabat. You know, we brought in Amrabat because it was a player that he knows, because he doesn't trust the recruitment. And why would you trust the recruitment? Because it's been absolutely terrible. The reason why we're in the situation where we are now, and the reason why we spent 1.2 billion quid or whatever it is since Fergie left, and our bench was, you looked at our bench, it was like 5 academy graduates and Mctominay, Ericsson, Bayern, and the other day, I can't remember which game it was. So, yeah, this is why we're in this mess. Recruitment's a huge part of it, and you shouldn't really let managers recruit players. I know, for example, at Liverpool, Klopp has a lot of control, and that's why a few people left. But obviously, he has good talent ID. But then, again, the other side of that is he didn't want Mo Salah. When he got offered Mo Salah when he was at Roma, I think, he didn't want him, notoriously. And obviously, Mo Salah went on to be one of their best players. Probably still don't want him after the argument that they had the other day. So, yeah, look, it's kind of swings and roundabouts. It can be hit and miss with transfers. I think a couple have been successful, but a couple of them obviously have been really bad, like your Anthony's and stuff. So, yeah, I think you need to just have a system where the coach can just focus on purely football and what's going on the pitch, rather than all the exterior issues where they've got, you know, kind of move on a dancing carpet, if you will. And that's why I think the next manager has the best chance is adding in the last 10 years, because you don't have to deal with all that bullshit. So, yeah. Another interesting thing that I saw reports coming out from Netherlands about Ten Hag potentially going back to Ajax. Marcel van der Kraan, who's a very well-respected Dutch journalist, has put out there on TalkSport saying Eric Ten Hag knows about it, the Ajax interest. He knows there's an open door at Ajax and that he could be their manager next season and try and win a title there again. I saw another thing as well saying, like, you know, he's he's on the shortlist for a reason. So I don't know if there's already been some form of preliminary talks or whatever you want to call it. But I was just sat there thinking, you know, for Erik ten Hag, the type of guy that he is, he's obviously very driven, he's very stubborn, he's very motivated. I don't see him as the type of person going back to Ajax, because then that would feel like a step back, in my opinion. Like, how do you go from Ajax to United, then back to Ajax? There's no trajectory there. Do you know what I mean? It's like players doing it sort of towards the end of the career, and he's still relatively youngish. I know he's like 52, but for a manager, that's still relatively young. You can go until about, I mean, how old is Roy Hodgson at the minute? 75 or something. So, yeah, we've still got plenty of years left. But I'd like to see, if he does go, I'd like to see the reaction of United fans and how they feel after he leaves, and maybe after the dust settles. And you know, with some people, the style of play just isn't sustainable. They don't like it and they want something new, and I completely get that. Elliot's just said Roy Hodgson is 103 years old. Yeah, he looks it, doesn't he? Last week Tuchel was 9-1. Now he's 2-1. Someone knows something for sure. I agree, David. 100%. Francisco says Hala Madrid are the best. Yeah, I mean, it'd be all right to be a Madrid fan over United one at the moment, wouldn't it? Just to let you know, we're on 4,847 subscribers currently at the moment. We're trying to hit 5,000 before the end of the season. I'm probably pecking everyone's head with this, but it is what it is. 153 or 5K. So if you can hit that subscribe button, if you're currently watching on YouTube, or if you're on TikTok, hit the link in the description. If you like football content and news shows twice a day. We've got a members video as well. For all you members who are in the YouTube chat right now, we have got a members video dropping United's team next season, how we could line up. And it's the best edit that I've done. Hands down, the best edit that I've done. Like, top level. So, we're going to drop that tomorrow at 12 o'clock early for the members. So, make sure you check that out when we do drop it. I've been saying for a while that we were going to drop it at some point. But, yeah, for anyone who knows editing and stuff, it's just, yeah, it takes a while. Especially when you're doing 2 live shows a day. It's hard to kind of fit in. Plus shorts and reels. And anyway, I digress. Back to the management talk. Just to kind of finish on this and conclude before we move on to the next topic. I'm past being asked now about United. I mean, in terms of this end of the season, I just don't care what happens because it's been shit all season. In terms of what happens when the manager, if they decide to move him on, I wouldn't be, you know, overly angry about that. I get both sides of it. Likewise, they decide to stick with him as well for another 6 months. Depending how we start the season, if it's still the same open, expansive, chaotic football, I'm not sure if I can be as happy or be as easy with him staying. So that again's up for debate in my mind. But it was kind of from the Fulham game onwards, it's been difficult to stick with him. So we'll kind of see what happens with that. And I'm sure talks are only going to heat up as we kind of move into this month of May now. And then we have June. They're the key months. You'll see, you know, a lot of pieces of the jigsaw moving. And in terms of at the board level, and obviously with the manager and the players and stuff. So yeah, let's move on to talk anyway. You can see on the graphic behind me, if you are on TikTok, the Premier League. So the Premier League clubs are expected to vote for an effective salary cap tomorrow. The cap will not be on what player can be paid, but how much a club can spend on their squad within wages, transfers, and agents. One proposal is an anchoring cap 4.5 times the broadcast revenue of the league's bottom club. If that cap was in place now, it would be 466 million. Now, the first thing I had to mind, and again, I don't know if you lot are thinking this as well, all of this is absolutely meaningless if fucking 115 Charges FC can violate it and get away with it because they've got a million lawyers and £1 billion to kind of just fucking say, yeah, piss off, basically. So it's all good and well and having these ideas and trying to implement them, but if teams are still getting away with it, which I'm not saying they have just yet, but my feeling is, not Madrid, it's because Hala Madrid's in the chat, my feeling is that Man City are probably going to get away with it. They're just going to keep pushing his case back, and they'll find a middle ground, and it'll be something like fucking 10-point deduction or something, which is ridiculous because they have 115 charges. Now, City fans will dispute the fact that, oh, well, it's not all individual charges. It's like the same charge 5 times. That's almost even worse because you're repeating the same behaviour 5 times. Like 5, I don't know how many 5s, 20, 22 times you've done it, regardless. Even if it is a repeat offence, if you've done it 5 times. So, and I don't care if it's one of those. Also, another thing to consider as well, there would be less pull for talent compared to all the other leagues. So why would the Premier League give up a massive pull that they have to make it slightly more competitive? It don't make sense to me whatsoever. I think the other clubs and other leagues will be looking at that and thinking, oh, salary cap, this is our chance to gain on him now. In my opinion, I mean, I don't see it working, to be honest. I agree with the sentiment of it and certain ideas involved, but whether it works or not, I don't know. It's like many things. You almost have to kind of trial and error, don't you, with this kind of shit. Look at that. Thiago Silva is done at Chelsea. Yeah, I saw that earlier on this morning. Antony, Pogba, Memphis, Di Maria, Casemiro were not bad players before they came to Man United. I mean, I get what you're saying, but also I don't think the majority of them suited the league, to be honest. I mean, Casemiro was phenomenal in his first year, but Antony didn't translate over from the Eredivisie, and even still, he didn't have amazing stats at Ajax, not to warrant 85 million quid. Pogba, I mean, he was doing well at Juventus, but again, you have to do your due diligence in terms of what their personality is like. What's the background. Pogba was very conflicting. He was certainly shit he did with his agent was really, really annoying. Di Maria, likewise, obviously he got like man of the match in the Champions League final, I think, for Madrid. Came to United and just couldn't adapt, could he? People find they struggle in the Premier League, man. That's why you really need to do your due diligence when you're scouting or when you're looking at certain players. But yeah, anyway, the Premier League, yeah, they are salary cap. So they're making a vote tomorrow. We'll find out the breaking news on that, whether it goes forward or not. But I think that could kind of shape the game a lot differently, or the way we kind of operate as a club. You look at the way the transfer market's been going recently. The winter window was probably the least amount of money spent because everybody's sat there panicking and worried about FFP and all these kind of things. So yeah, it's got to a point now where I think the Neymar transfer was the one that really kind of opened doors for everything. It kind of set the bar, didn't it? Because when you go that ridiculous for a player in terms of wage demands and transfer fee, that then, your Jack Grealish is going for 100 million quid. Your Antony's going for 85 million quid. Coutinho, 140. Dembele, 100 and whatever it was. Like, it just gives a massive margin then to do that. So maybe a salary cap would be a good thing, but I'd worry then about other leagues kind of catching up on us, I suppose, if I was to kind of finish on that. Right, let's move on to... Should we talk about centre-backs or should we talk about Mctominay injury concern? We'll move on to centre-backs because obviously that's linked in with transfers and we've just been talking about salary cap spends and transfer fees and all that kind of stuff. So Samuel Luckhurst put a tweet out this morning that Man United want 2 centre-backs this summer. Now, the centre-backs we've been linked with at the minute that I've seen over the past couple of days, you've got Mark Guehi from Crystal Palace, as you can see on the TikTok graphic. You've got Tapsoba from Bayer Leverkusen, who's, I don't know if he's signed his new contract yet or not, but looks like a decent player. You've got Branthwaite at Everton, who you're going to get Premier League tax, you're going to get English tax on that. You've got Todibo at Nice, who you could probably get for a good price. And you've got Araujo, who's also been linked from Barcelona. But, I mean, you talk about difficulty and financial, and it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So, a lot of options, different types of players in there. The thing, what instantly came to my mind when I saw that, when Luckhurst put out, United definitely want 2 centre-backs. And he's got good links, he's on the fucking United podcast. He's in every single press conference. I imagine he's got very strong links when it comes to United. He does put out a lot of negative stuff, but he knows people at the club. So, I would take it as pretty serious. The issue I take is, we had a show the other day where we was discussing a net spend of 100 million quid, right? So we're definitely getting 2 centre-backs. That's what Luckhurst has put. It's been put out there as well that we're definitely getting a left-back, regardless what happens with Tyrone Malacia and Luke Shaw. We're definitely looking at a midfielder because we need depth in there. We definitely need another striker because Rasmus Højlund is the only fit and available one and Martial is going to leave in the summer. I've not even mentioned the right-back situation because he was looking at Frimpong because he's got a release clause for like 35 million quid. And then, you know, they want a creative winger as well. So if you're looking, this is my point. If you're looking at a net spend of 100 million quid, someone's fucking lying, because 2 centre backs, a left back, a midfielder, a striker, and a right back for 100 million quid. How many players is that? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 players, let's say. Are you spending, you know, 15 million quid? Is that right? Quick math. 15, 30, 45, 60. Roughly about 15 million quid in it. 17.5 on each player. You're shopping in home bargains, mate. Who you going to go and buy? Even if you're shopping for release clauses. Even if you go for a Frimpong and a Sesko, them two together alone is 75 million quid. Now, obviously, selling players will be worth something, and that'll add to our budget. But what sellable assets have we got at the minute? Varane's going to go on a free. Martial's going to go on a free. Who else have we got? Maguire, maybe you'll get 30 to 40 million quid for him. And they're not. I can't see him selling Shaw on Malacia. Wan-Bissaka, how much would you get for him realistically? 25, 30. Midfield, Casemiro, if you're lucky, Saudi Arabia, if you come in, you might get a decent fee for him. You know, you're kind of looking around, you're like, I'm not sure who's a sellable asset. Now, FFP may come into this. Ineos might have a plan, and they might say, look, if we sell Mason Greenwood for 40 million quid, that's pure profit. And a little bit of a wage bill off as well. Same thing with McTominay. If an offer comes in for McTominay, another one, pure profit. And the same thing again, Marcus Rashford, which definitely won't happen. Don't see him being sold this summer. I think he'll stay. But if they did, and they got 60, 70 million quid and 300,000 pound off the wage bill, that would be huge. So maybe Ineos are making some moves. Maybe they're looking at certain things and like, this could open, you know, a lot more expenditure for us during the summer. But again, with that, you can only kind of speculate, can't you? I'd love to get everyone's thoughts, though. What are the priority positions at the moment? Absolutely concrete from 1 to 5 in terms of level of importance. Who do we definitely need? I'll give you mine first, and then I'll dive into yours. So I think, looking at us at the minute, in terms of priority, it's difficult because we do need these 3 positions. I'm thinking of that we definitely need someone there. I would probably go Casemiro's position is the biggest for me, and I know we need centre backs, but that midfield, we need a defensive midfielder again somehow. I don't know how this has happened. We've needed one for fucking 8 years. Whenever Carrick pissed off, since then we have needed a defensive midfielder. I mean, Matic was decent in fairness to him when he first came in, but then fell off a cliff. Like, we're desperate for a defensive midfielder and someone who's not just 30, 31, is going to last a year and then we need another one. 24, 25 years old, a little bit raw. You'll see him in Member's video. I'm not going to give it away. But a certain midfielder I went for, who I think would be the perfect prototype for that midfield. So, midfield, striker, centre-back is the way I would go. Yeah, probably. But it's difficult. You could rotate him at any point. Steve saying centre mid, centre back, striker, right wing. Yeah, I'd probably agree with that, to be honest with you. 8 million quid for Rashford. The reason why I said 60, 70, didn't I? I don't think I said 80. I'd probably say 60, 70 for him, just because what he brings with his profile as well and everything around him, his PR team. And do you know what I mean? You bring more eyeballs in that sense rather than just as a standard transfer. And he's still relatively young, so I think you'd get 50 to 60 million for Rashford, surely. I mean, he was talks about him going in the summer for like 80 to 100 million. So, yeah. Any news on Elise? No. The latest I seen with Elise was David Ornstein was saying that he wants to go to a club of Champions League football. So that rules us out, doesn't it? I think maybe, I don't know who would sign Elise. I don't think City or Arsenal. Maybe Liverpool if they got rid of Mo Salah, but then would Elise necessarily fit their style? I don't know. We've got Palace next, actually. I'm not looking forward to that game whatsoever. Gussie saying you should have bought Declan Rice. I know. He's the only player I look at the moment who's been bought for 100 million plus, or whatever it was. It was close to that, wasn't it? Who I look at and I'm like, he was worth it. Do you know what I mean? He was definitely worth it. like the level of improvement in Arsenal, a lot of it is down to him. He's been amazing for them. And I also think his ability on the ball is super underrated in terms of going forward, how creative he can be, how good he is on set pieces, great ball carrier, great defensive flair, energy, relentless. Yeah, he's a top player. United desperately need someone like him. He is. Under Fergie, back in the day, if we was winning, we would sign someone like him. No doubt. Like one of the best English talents in the midfield area. We would have gone for him. But where we're at in a minute, we have teams, unfortunately, in the league who are doing far better than us. So this is where we're at in a minute. McTominay, let me quickly touch on that whilst I'm talking about midfielders. Everything's segueing perfectly into each other here, which I like. In fact, have we got any comments on YouTube just before I think? It does sound we're switching to a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. Sancho and Greenwood around 30 to 50 for those. Again, as well, Charlie, it depends. It depends what players come, what coach comes in. So we don't know what style is going to be played. Do it like I don't know if De Zerbi comes in, I would imagine someone like an Ahmad and Sancho would probably get more game time. If Tuchel comes in, maybe looks at players like Amadou Onana or more kind of physical type who are really good defensive flair. Do you know what I mean? Like certain managers have profile of players that they want, so it just depends who comes in. That's why I'm finding it hard to imagine how they're recruiting players at the minute, because if they go to Erik ten Hag and they say, what players do you want, Erik? And he's like, well, we need this. And like, okay, what type? Like, what are you going towards? Are you going to stick with this weird, chaotic, direct, transitional football? Yeah. And they're like, okay, well, we'll look at buying these kind of players. And then they get rid of him, and then they bring in Tuchel. It's like, well, we've already bought these players now. Plus, we've got Lissandro, Onana, Mount, and all these guys who you have to deal with as well. So it's difficult. I don't know how they're managing that in a minute. But anyway, I've gone off on a tangent. McTominay injury concern. So inside United, anyone who's on Twitter knows he's bang on when it comes to kind of, not leaks, because that sounds bad, but he gets information about United. Let's just leave it at that. He said Scott McTominay will have a scan on his injury tomorrow. Early signs are slightly concerning, so it's looking like a long-term injury. Yeah, again, shock, another injury. We don't need to say anything. This has been United season all season. I bet these players can't wait for a fucking couple of weeks off. I can't wait for a week where we don't have any injury news, where I don't have to discuss that we've got yet again another player missing. Imagine if he missed the Euros as well. He's going to be devastated, isn't he? I don't know if it's going to be a 6-month or a couple of months, maybe with a hamstring. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but it does not look good for Scott McTominay. And again, his future as well. I don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to sell him? Is he going to stay? Would you keep him as a squad player? Would you take 30 to 40 million quid for him? I remember a lot of people at the time when West Ham came in, he was like, take the money. But in fairness to United, I think both McTominay and Maguire's value has gone even up even more. Look at McTominay's goal scoring record. Whatever you say about him as a complete player, phenomenal. Maguire this season has been back at his best almost. He's been really good. So both players have drove their valuation up. And if we get a decent offer, 40 to 50 million quid, let's say both of them, 40 million quid, I think majority of United fans would take that. But we'll have to see what happens with Scott McTominay. The last topic I'm going to discuss, there's no way I can segue into this because you can't segue into absolute idiotic human beings, but we're going to talk about it anyway. So, there was a clip that went out on Twitter past couple of days after the Burnley game, and it is basically someone's dad, I'm guessing, in the away end after Burnley scored the equaliser, doing a reference of a plane and saying Munich and all this kind of stuff, which is just fucking idiotic. I don't need to explain that. The police have now arrested and charged the 44-year-old Burnley fan who was spotted mocking the Munich air disaster during yesterday's game at Old Trafford. Fantastic news. I think at the moment in football, there seems to be, it's always been there, disaster chanting and racism and all these things you don't want to see in the game. They've always been there. By the minute, it just feels like there's a lot more of it. I don't know if we're seeing it more in the news and because of social media and these kind of things. But there's just fucking idiots everywhere, isn't there? I look at the situation with like Vinicius, for example, at Real Madrid. One of the most talented wingers I've seen. Would love him at United. You look at how he gets treated at a club like Real Madrid, considering what he's done for them, scored in finals and stuff. Been an amazing player for him. And then, like, in the league that he's in, he's getting, like, you know, monkey chants and stuff like this. You're like, are you fucking, like, stupid? What are you doing? You just, I don't get what people think they're going to achieve from it. And this is a bit of a heavy topic for an afternoon show, so I do apologise. But I just look at it and I think, like, I know people are tribal and it's football and people get passionate about it, but there is a line for me. And once you go past that line, you know, it becomes something more than what it should be. So, yeah, glad he's been charged. Up he gets the worst for it. Up he has to do community service, picking up chuddies off the floor. And, yeah, good riddance to the prick. Anyway, what time are we on? 30 minutes, bang on. Perfect way to wrap it up. Thank you very much to everyone who's tuned in. Please do leave a like on the video for us. We're on 4,848 subs. We need 2 to get to 4,850. If you're watching on the TikTok, please click the link in the description. Check out our YouTube channel. We're going to be live again. We're going to be live again tonight at 7 o'clock. And then we have a members video dropping at 12 o'clock tomorrow. How Man United could line up next season. And again, very, very good edit. So make sure you check that out. And then we'll be live again. Live again. So yeah, make sure you check us out. Take it easy, everyone. Hope the rest of your day isn't too hard, whether you're working or whatever it is you're doing, college, uni. And I'll see you guys later on at 7 o'clock. Take it easy.